All right, I call to order the Town of Saybrook Zoning Commission regular and hybrid meeting of Monday, March 6, 2023 at 7 p.m. in Town Hall, first floor conference room, 302 Main Street, Old Saybrook. Seated tonight, that's me, Bob Friedman, Chairman, and regular commission members Mark Delmonico and Anne Marie Thorson. Seated for Jerry Lewis tonight is Sandy DeCenzo. And seated for Mark Calderella. We voted last time, right? So we voted on
Not last meeting before.
No, but that was the last time an alternate.
Yes.
Yeah, seated for Mark Calderella is John Henry. Also present this evening is alternate Justin Terraville. And at the table, we have our clerk, Joanne Galley, and 3 people in the audience here and 3 online. Next on the agenda is the minutes. Minutes of the Zoning Commission meeting of Wednesday, February 22nd. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
I found.
Yeah, great, thank you. I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the Zoning Commission meeting of Wednesday, February 22nd.
Second.
As presented.
Second.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Oh, Mark Delmonico seconds the motion. Any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes? None appearing. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the Zoning Commission February 22nd meeting signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. No abstentions, none opposed. Correspondence. Have we any correspondence other than related to applications? No. Since our last meeting, we did have one letter of correspondence from Mr. Casella informing us that Oasis had withdrawn their application. I remember that one. Public hearings. A, Max's Place LLC and Big Y Foods Incorporated petition to amend the Old Saybrook zoning regulations to amend section 53.1 standards for motor vehicle uses to eliminate separation distance requirements for fuel pumps and add a requirement for vehicle battery charging stations. Applicant Max's Place LLC and Big Y Foods Incorporated, agent attorney David Royston. Mr. Royston.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The first petition that we sent is the one which seeks to eliminate any separation distance restriction from your regulations for gas stations. And but the petition says, provided that there be an EV charging station on a basically one charging station for each 2 gas pumps. And so even if there was no restriction on the distance, it would be that restriction goes if you have a charging station. So I'm going to just alert you in advance that we're going to ask that this matter be continued and to your April meeting. And the reason for the April meeting, I've been advised that you have 3 public hearings on your next March meeting. So unlike tonight, it looks like you're going to be a lot busier. Part of the reason for doing that is because of the some of the items that you may not have actually received as of yet came in recently. One basically is the from the traffic authority. So I believe this came in after hours in the land use office, so it hasn't been posted or what have you. But, I'm going to provide you with, copies of that for the record so that you'll have the opportunity to review that. So, that. So one of them for your record. I suggest you may want to refrain from reading it in light of the request for the continuance, because part of it is to give you the opportunity to look at that. The second reason for the continuance is that on the application to reduce the restrictions in their entirety, you want to provide a legal memorandum regarding our belief that it is a violation of the constitutional protection for equal treatment. And that's a very legalistic matter, but we will provide a memorandum, and I want to put it in the record. And since we paid review fees, Ordinance 71, to Matt Willis for legal review, I will provide a copy to him so that before you have your next meeting, he will at least have been able to review the memorandum we provided and advise you in whatever way he deems appropriate.
Okay, so for clarification purposes, that's for this application, item A. And does it apply to any others later this evening?
Yes, the second application also.
Awesome. So it's both, okay.
We will request that for that application also. The Planning Commission gave you a report in which they basically denied the first application, the one that's before you right now. Their report was a denial that it was not consistent with the plan of conservation and development. So
that's that. As I read their report, we got that by email. That was the entirety of their report, was that they recommended denial because it was not consistent with the plan of conservation and development. Period. That's the extent of their report.
That is correct.
That's all we got from the Planning Commission.
Right, correct. I understand that. And there are questions regarding that, but a disapproval would require a 4-to-1 affirmative vote to pass the amendment in light of their disapproval. That's what the statute says. So we may need to address that also in the memorandum.
the plan of conservation and development that was referenced by the planning commission, I presume is the one that's current. And that's what they go by. And so I took a quick look at the plan of conservation and development and found that the sidewalk plan continues to be a current part of the plan of conservation and development. They did not mention that in their report.
Right. I'm not sure that this, elimination of this, restriction would change any aspects of the, an application, coming forward with respect to sidewalks.
The sidewalk plan is highly conscious of pedestrian sidewalks along the roads, which are part of the B4 district. And the sidewalk plan actually has some comment about Amen. There is a comment in here, as I think it was like on page 6. There's a comment in the sidewalk plan where the recommendation is to reduce dependency on motor vehicles. And in the section on page 10 regarding curbs, curb cuts, driveways, and ramps to keep to carry the sidewalk across the driveway, blah, blah, blah. To replace continual curb cuts with a single shared curb cut wherever is possible. So that might impact a future application for a gas station. And I'm looking, I'll find, let's continue. But there's a note about reducing dependency on vehicles.
So I recognize, Mr. Chairman, that any member of the commission is entitled to have its own view, his or her own view of what the plan of conservation and development is recommended. So you have stated a couple of items, and we'll respond to those two at the proper time. Still with the planning commission, however, and I should say this for the next one.
The letter you delivered to us dated March 6th today from the Department of Police Services, signed by Chief Spira, Director of Emergency Management. He also happens to be our local traffic authority, but that's not mentioned in this paper you gave us. But in this, he supports the proposed revisions, plural, to zoning regulations that pertain to fueling stations, gasoline stations. Specifically, the abolishment of the archaic regulatory requirement for stations to have a 1,000-foot separation from each other. Now, it's regulations subtly different from that, but I know what he means, right? Over the past several years, Old Saybrook has seen the unfortunate closure of several fueling stations, not due to the lack of need, while the town has permitted the establishment of new businesses that have increased our community's year-round service population. As service population increases, businesses prosper, or local economic environment thrives. It's important that our local regulations permit support industries such as fueling stations to provide our service population with the convenience it requires, so Old Saybrook continues to be a desired destination. Last page, last paragraph on page 1, the abolishment of the archaic regulatory requirement for fueling stations to have a 1,000-foot separation from each other would benefit our community, members of Old Saybrook's resident and service populations, and our local economy. And first paragraph, page 2, perhaps in place of current regulations, new forward-thinking regulations can be established, such as the requirement of any new fueling station business to have a certain number of electric vehicle EV charging stations and public access automatic external defibrillators that meet our specifications. And that's from Chief Spiro. And if the Planning Commission's recommendation for this first edition, item A on the agenda, which specifically is to eliminate separation distance for fuel pumps, which Mr. Chief Spiro seems to agree with, and to add a requirement for battery charging stations, Chief Spiro was also recommending that that be included. The Planning Commission recommended that the Zoning Commission deny this application. That's what we have in front of us.
Understood. The only comment I will make is that Chief Spiro was not on the referral list, and I made inquiry of whether the local traffic authority would be on the list. And
But we have no specific application before, despite the mention of a location in town. This is the text change regulation, and as such, Chief Spiro is not required to be one on the list of who gets a referral, but I would hope that he's aware of our agenda because it's publicly posted.
right. I'm not arguing with you, I'm just stating the fact he was not on the referral list. And therefore, I did request that he comment as a local traffic authority.
Well, he didn't mention that in his letter.
I understand that. And I will contact him again and ask him to clarify whether he is responding as a local traffic authority or only as the, I think he mentioned emergency administrator, that part of one of his functions also in his letter.
Right.
That's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I have also another letter which I don't think, although dated February 28th, I don't think made it into the because I didn't get a physical copy, so I'm going to give you a copy. This one is for the record, and then over for members, and that's it. That's all I'm presenting at this point. But as I say, we will be submitting a legal memorandum on this, and we'll make sure Attorney Rose gets it and is aware of it.
So the legal memorandum that you referred to earlier, and that you're in communication with, consulting attorney Matt Willis, do you have that or to be submitted to us this evening?
Yeah.
Oh. For those online, we're reading the letter from Big Y dated February 28th, 2023, that Mr. Royson presented to us this evening. Has this been presented, has this been gone through the land use office, and it is not yet available online?
It has been emailed to him, but it was after hours today, so it's not online.
Hmm? I do note in the letter from Big Y Foods Incorporated, signed by Matthew Damour, in the last paragraph of page 1, he references a denial of at the October 3rd, 2022 meeting, a text amendment regarding it doesn't say. We then applied for an amendment to the zoning regulations to reduce the restriction. Okay, in order to proceed with our proposed development. And we were denied at the October 3rd, 2022 meeting. The reason in the minutes of the denial said the amount of fuel pumps in Old Saybrook has declined over the years, and the need for more fossil fuel stations is a short-lived proposition. Well, I would say that the number of gas stations in Old Saybrook has declined over the years, regardless of the amount of fuel pumps, but it's the number of gas stations that to me is significant. That when I first came to Old Saybrook, there were 13 that I recall, and right now we're down to 6 operational gas stations. That where the Chamber of Commerce was once a gas station, and that use has obviously been abandoned and supplanted by a new use. The gas station at the intersection of 166 Spencer Plain Road and Route 1 was closed and supplanted and therefore abandoned by Solimar Cafe, and it is presently Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin'. Then there's the gas station near the Big Burger King and the shopping center, which has not pumped gasoline for years, but continues to be an automobile repair location. The Meineke Muffler Shop used to have gas pumps. They have been removed, but as with Kenny's and the Meineke spots, those are still previously approved as gas stations and could be rejuvenated if the property owner went in that direction. Same thing goes for the Classic Carriage Car Wash, the green car wash and car vacuuming business that's close to a famous intersection of Springbrook Road and Route 1 down at that end of town. That's previously approved as a gas station, but not currently operating as one. The mobile station closest to Mystic Market at Route 1 and Route 154 intersection is presently boarded up. I don't know what the future of that one is, but it has been that way for several months now. And so the 6 that we have the food bag, which is referenced in the materials you presented to us this evening, down by Spencer Plain Road and Route 1. We have Henny Penny Shell, and we have Chucky's. We have Henny Penny number 2, the Sunoco station near Main and Route 1. And we have Cumberland Farms, and we have the Pitlick's Classic Carriage Car, the big one that has a convenience store and a car wash and a gas station. And so that's to the best of my recollection, those are the stations that we have in Old Saybrook. 6 operational, down from 13 in the past. And so it still is a truism that the number of gas stations in Old Saybrook has declined from what it once was. Furthermore, the number of gas stations in Old Saybrook at 6 operational and 3 that could return is a greater number than the gas stations in Westbrook or Essex or Chester or Deep River or Old Lyme. And I don't know I don't know how far out I would have to go to find a town that had a greater number of gas stations than Old Saybrook. And so in keeping with the region, we have more than anybody. And we have fewer than we used to have, which tells me that the trend, according to those years involved, the trend is toward fewer gas stations, not more. And if there's an interest in a gas station at a particular location, it should look at the regulations that have been in place since at least 1977, which one can find by looking online. It's hard to look earlier than 1977, but the same regulation was in there in 1977. And over the course of all those years, the number has gone one way, down. And in that light, an applicant who wishes to install a new gas station that has a property, this is called Max's Place, Spencer. Max's Place is mentioned in the second paragraph, and Max's Place is a big lot, and there is a part of the lot which could comply with that regulation at 1,000 feet from the nearest gas pump. And it's just that Max's Place chooses to wish that they could put the gas station somewhere else, which is not in compliance with that regulation. And so that's just a matter of having decided on the gas station at a point in time when it's inconvenient based on what was done previously, or the gas station could have been on the northern end of that location. But we don't have that specific site as part of this application this evening. That's all hypothetical. We're still talking about a text change regarding the separation distance for gas stations. And we have what we have from Chief Spira and from the Planning Commission, and the DEEP comments are a summary of the DEEP comments that they reviews the proposed petition for consistency, goals and policies of the Connecticut Coastal Management Act and find the proposal generally consistent. And so that's what we have before us this evening. If you have additional materials to present to us this evening for this agenda item A, then we wish that you would provide them to us. If you're telling us that you're going to provide them and have not yet provided them to our council, is that true?
Yes.
And so my question then is, why don't we, the commission, have that before us this evening?
Because I have not prepared it in a form satisfactory to be submitted to you and to your council.
Okay. Then the commission, in terms of accepting matters relevant to the application during the public hearing to be part of the record on which the commission then deliberates to make their legislative decision in this case. We are permitted to accept input from staff. And Matt Willis, our consulting attorney, would be considered staff. My question then would be, does it seem reasonable for us to receive information from staff that staff would provide to us? He wouldn't necessarily have to provide Mr. Royston's input that Mr. Royston has not provided us, but he could simply report to us what he generates.
The way I understood it is you're going to submit something, giving him an opportunity to review it and give that feedback to us. That's the way I understood it.
That is correct. I've asked that the hearing be continued because there are limitations on what you can receive after the hearing is closed. Yes, you can receive from your counsel, but you cannot receive material which may be contrary to that or in supplement to that. I would simply say that this is a request which is being made. It's being made by an applicant, and I think that it ought to be given, if nothing else, the courtesy of being able to make a full presentation to you. And that's the reason why I request it.
I hear you, Mr. Royston, but the fact is that you had submitted your your document to our consulting attorney and at a date prior to this meeting, and you've given us several documents this evening, which I'm seeing for the first time here because they were not posted online for me to review. Then, in my opinion, if it's part of this application, it should be here on the opening night of the public hearing. And in this particular case, there is a way for that analysis from our consulting attorney, Matt Willis, to be received by the commission. And that would be that we can get additional information through staff. And so if we were to, among ourselves, take Mr. Royston's point, that there seems to be some concern about the legality of separation distances regarding uses infringing on the rights of property owners which might want to establish such uses. And so we now have that question raised. We could then ask our attorney for his input and opinion on that matter. And if he were to in reply in a broad sense to our questions tonight, then we would be receiving that answer. And that's all we would need, because the legislative decision is in the hands of the zoning commission. And our attorney could give us advice, but it's up to the commission to make the decision. All right.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Yes.
comment? Thank you. I commend you on your memory of the number and location of gas stations. Very few people know that Solomar intervened between the current use, but the Shell station and the current use. However, I think your recollection of how applicants are treated is a little bit remiss, because my experience has been that on numerous occasions, hearing to then continue in order that applicants may provide additional material. Generally, it's been granted without question. And it seems to me if you were not to grant a continuance, it seems to be an adversarial action simply because we wish to raise the question of the legality of.
Well, you did. Our attorney has that question from you. Is there anything else you wish to raise regarding the legality for us this evening?
As I've said, I wish to put it in a manner which is suitable for presentation to the commission and to him.
Well, this is the public hearing. This is the opportunity to have done that.
I renew my request for a continuance, Mr. Chairman.
All right, this is a public hearing, and we have received input from the applicant. We received letters that the applicant presented to us this evening and referrals from the Planning Commission and the DEP. Do we have any other documents regarding just the first application, item A, from any other correspondence?
No,
No, that's it. All right, then, being a public hearing, we have, I see there's nobody online anymore.
yeah, there is,
Oh, we
but
got one, yes.
I
All
can't,
right, does the person online wish to make any comments in favor of or in opposition to this application for a zoning regulation text change? Use the raise your hand feature.
Ted,
Okay,
maybe,
yes, please go ahead. Allowed to talk. Our clerk is clicking on that and get a moment. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Ted Levy. I'm a resident of Old Saybrook. I've heard the presentation that was made earlier several weeks ago and the good reasons why it was rejected. I don't see where this is significantly different. To change the distance between the gas pumps from 1,000 to 500 feet is a frivolous action. And if this doesn't fly, why doesn't the applicant come back and say, change the applicant to 200, to change the distance between pumps to 250 feet or some other measure? And then to come to this hearing tonight, this public hearing, provide new information that's not available to the commission nor to the public and ask for a continuance is really an abuse of the application process. The whole procedure, because they were rejected at one point and now come back with a basically essentially a very similar application, makes this a nuisance proposal and should be rejected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Anyone in the room wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to this application for the text change? None appearing. If we receive the input from our consulting attorney, Matt Willis, that counts as input from staff. And we would then have all of the information necessary to deliberate on this at that time. As for input into the public hearing regarding this matter this evening, there doesn't appear to be anything other than that before us. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for item A, Max's Place LLC and Big Y Foods. Petition to amend the Old Saybrook zoning regulations to amend section 53.1 standards for motor vehicle uses to eliminate separation distance requirements for fuel pumps and add a requirement for vehicle battery charging stations. Is there a second to the motion? No second to the motion, then the motion dies. Anyone care to make a motion?
Make a motion if we continue the public hearing to hear the input from our attorney in response to his.
The motion has to include the future date, time, and place. For legal reasons. It's
Okay, but April,
in the box.
oh, next, regularly scheduled hybrid meeting of Monday, April,
We would have to go to April because we already have 3 hearings at the next meeting. So it would have to
Regular
be the
meeting
first.
in April, if you would.
Make it the second meeting
in
in
the second meeting in April 23rd, 7 o'clock, town hall here in Old City,
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock here in Old City.
Second meeting in April.
April, 302 Main Street, Old Saybrook, Connecticut, 06475.
Could I inquire why the second meeting as opposed to the first meeting in April?
Just the next meeting we're full.
Yeah, the
The
first,
first meeting in April.
first
the
meeting in
agenda
April?
is full. We can,
No.
within the
We're
11,
at the first meeting in March. We still have another meeting in March. That
Yes.
one has
we
3.
have 2 more meetings in March. We also have a special meeting at the end of March.
Right, but what he's asking is the first meeting in April.
yes,
The first meeting in April has an agenda that is it full?
No, not that I know of, so we can
Okay.
shoot
Oh,
first.
okay, so the first meeting in April.
What date is it?
April 3rd. So your motion would be to continue this public hearing to the regularly scheduled meeting of the zoning commission of April
3rd.
3rd, 7 o'clock at town hall in Old Saybrook, Connecticut,
302 Main Street.
302 Main Street.
Yep, the include the end. Is there a second to Monica's motion? All right, John Henry seconds the motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion to continue the public hearing, signify by saying aye. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Me. Next item on the agenda is Max's Place LLC and Big Y Foods Inc. Petition to amend the Old Saybrook zoning regulations to amend section 53.1 standards for motor vehicle uses to reduce the separation distance requirement for fuel and add a requirement for vehicle battery charging stations in the Gateway Business Depot Shopping Center district. This differs from the first one in that the underlying portion of the section 53.1 motor vehicle uses in the standards section. The new language is, except that for a motor vehicle fueling station in a shopping center in the Gateway Business B4 district, the radius will be 500 feet, provided there will be vehicle battery charging stations on the shopping center lot of not less than 50% of the number of gasoline pumps. I have this as a draft amendment, and it has no strikeouts. So this would retain the 1,000-foot separation elsewhere, because there is no part of this application striking that out.
That is correct.
Okay, is that not?
It eliminates,
So with this open public hearing then for this new before us application this evening, just note that this is different from the last, and we have to incorporate all of the same activities into the open part of the public hearing. So for this application, we have a referral from the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, which says, coincidentally, the same as before. They have received the proposed petition for consistency with the goals. They reviewed the proposed petition for consistency with the goals and policies of the Connecticut Coastal Management Act and find the proposal generally consistent. Chief Spirit's letter, do you wish for that Chief Spirit's letter to also apply to this application?
I have a letter which I would submit for this application. It is the same as the letter submitted in the previous application for which each of you has.
Okay, noted again, Chief Spirit's letter dated March 6, 2023, in support of the text change regarding zoning regulations pertaining to fueling stations, in which Chief Spirit signs it as Chief of Police and Director of Emergency Management. Note that Chief Spirit is also the local traffic authority, which is not represented as such in the letter given to us today, March 6th. There's a letter from Big Y Foods Incorporated to the Old Saybrook Zoning Commission of February 28, 2023, also applied for this application.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have another copy of that letter to submit for the record. It is the same as
It is the same
letter
as
submitted
before.
for the previous application, which the members have.
And as noted before, at the paragraph at the bottom of page 1, the letter says we were denied at the October 3rd, 2022 meeting. The reason in the minutes of the denial said the amount of fuel pumps in Old Saybrook has declined over the years, and the need for more fossil fuel stations is a short-lived proposition. I do not know if there has been a decline in other areas, but there have been no closings in the area since Big Y opened, and there is only the food bag station in the west section of town. And for the record, I note again that since I lived in this town, there were at one time 13 different gas stations, and there are at present 6 operational. There are 3 gas stations, which are former gas stations, which are not operational at present, but they certainly could return if the property owner were to reestablish a gas station, because those 4 sites, I'm sorry, that'd be Kenny Mobile, Plastic Car Wash, and mine, yes, for those 4 sites could rejuvenate a gas station. There are 2 sites where the Chamber of Commerce is located and where the at Route 166 and Route 1, where Foley Mar Cafe once was, that are no longer approved as gas stations, with that use continuing to be renovated. And then my other comment was that we have gone from a high of 13 to a present 6 operational, and that's a higher number of gas stations than the surrounding towns. And that the 1,000-foot separation distance between gas pumps has been in our regulations from at least since 1977. It may have been even earlier that regulation was present in the zoning regulations for Old Saybrook, but it's more difficult to find that online. But you can find it in the 1977 regulations online. Then with regard to charging stations, I happen to have noticed that the Connecticut State Legislature is interested in requiring charging stations on any lot with more than 100 parking spaces. And so once again, the Connecticut State Legislature is putting their toe into the zoning, but from our perspective, regulation of electric vehicle charging stations is a local issue, and this application has a provision that there would be vehicle battery charging stations on the shopping center lot of not less than 50% of the number of gasoline pumps. That may or may not coincide with a future state requirement, but that would be our local regulation if this text change amendment is approved. We have for referral from the Planning Commission on this one, and the Planning Commission on this one. Is this the one where
They recommend approval.
recommended approval in part?
Yes, they also, the recommendation is to remove the proposal to add electric vehicle charging stations.
Okay. The Planning Commission recommended approval. Is this the one they recommended a different separation distance or no?
It's all the same.
It's all the same.
No, that was the other one where they recommended denial. All right, so for this
This is the
one,
one for the B4 shopping center district.
yes, okay. So the Planning Commission, in spite of Chief Spear's recommendation in his letter of March 6th, and the inclination, if you will, of the state legislature increasing the number of electric vehicle charging stations, the Planning Commission recommends removal of that part. Does the applicant wish to cooperate with the Planning Commission's recommendation, or shall the electric vehicle charging stations remain a part of the proposed text regulation?
They should remain a part of the proposed text regulation. But I did agree or advise the planning commission that I would provide language which would accomplish their purpose. And I will submit that to you
Well,
tonight. This is not a request that you adopt this, but this is simply the language which would accomplish the planning commission purpose, should you choose to do so.
the letter from the planning commission regarding their report to us based on a referral. We look for the text change, the date of the planning commission letter,
March sixth.
March sixth, today. And so they were, the referral went to them,
March 1st.
I don't, it says 35 days before public hearing.
but the public hearing had to open by a date prior to this evening, obviously. The planning commission was advised of this application and they gave us their report in a timely manner. And they rendered their decision in their report with nothing more than approve but remove the EV charging station part. All right. So that's what we have from the planning commission. The applicant has opted, as the applicant may, to continue to apply for the text change, including the electric vehicle charging station language as presented to it. Right.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Understood. Any other materials to come into the public record at this time? Yes, Mr.
I
Ray.
may submit a copy of the a language which would accomplish the planning commission purpose. We are not presenting this as our alternative, and we do not support it. We still support the one.
All right, you can see from here that there's a part that is, let's call it redacted.
Yes.
All right, so since it's not an existing regulation, it's not required to be in strike-through font as it would otherwise have been, but we can accept this redacted as not including that language. All right, so
There's the
Right. Is there any other material that should come into the public record? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application regarding the zoning text change for allowing fuel filling devices except for device on any other lot? Hold on, hold on, just a minute. Mr. Royston, you have redacted or struck through all of the words that were underlined as being part of this application. Dated February 3rd, this is the text of the amendment. And if all of these dark redactions here are removed, the only change is the remaining underlined words, other fuel filling devices. And so item B of the regulations in section 53.1 would read, no pump or other fuel filling devices for the retail sale of gasoline or other motor vehicle fuel on any lot will be located within less than 25 feet of any street line or property line. No motor vehicle fueling station will be located or within a radius of 1,000 feet of any pump or other fuel filling devices or device on any other lot.
It would have to be 500.
Pardon me?
It was 500, which they,
This, what we have before, it says 1,000. And you wish to change that to 500?
yes. Thank you.
So in this one you just handed me,
Yes.
Should
that
read
change.
500.
Yeah.
And that then would stem in part from an item in the February 28th letter from from Big Y Foods, sorry, in which they Matthew Damore mentions a distance from where is it? Somewhere in here, there's a
third paragraph, I think.
third. Oh, there, it is, at the end of the third paragraph. Our nearest proposed pump location is within 537 feet of the nearest pump at the food bag property at 1630 Boston Post Road. Does 500 feet meet the needs according to this, that the nearest proposed pump is within 537 feet? So 500 feet is also within 537 feet. So it's 500 feet
Sufficient
is sufficient.
for them to meet the restriction.
So somewhere between 500 feet distant and 537 feet is the actual distance.
That's correct. They're going to be more than 500
Okay,
feet.
this doesn't tell me what that distance is, right? So the reduction from 1,000 feet to 500 feet is for accommodation of a particular property in mind, but would also apply to all other potential locations for gasoline stations, fuel filling stations, correct?
That would be.
Because this does not break out any shopping, what you have now, or have changed it to now, it no longer has anything to do with whether it's a B4 district or a shopping center.
That's the planning commission's version.
So I need to remove at the top Gateway Business District B4 and shopping centers, correct?
Yes, you would.
Yes.
I didn't get
Right.
that. Could you try again?
Apologize. This
timing is
that.
perfect.
We were looking for.
I didn't plan it.
So
Okay,
this is,
yes,
just to be clear, this is what the planning commission would like presented in front of us?
That's my belief,
Right.
yes.
and is that what you're applying for now?
No,
No, okay,
absolutely not.
you're applying for the original text
That's correct.
applied to us. Okay. The original text has no motor and section 53.1 standards, part B, halfway down. After the first sentence, no motor vehicle fueling station will be located or within a radius of 1,000 feet. You wish to change that to 500 also?
500 feet, yes.
Oh, but the text I have here dated February 3rd, it says 1,000. We want to change that to 500. Is that right? I have a draft, part of the application. 1,000. Oh,
That's it,
Except for.
besides,
oh, okay.
so that stays.
No motor vehicle fueling station will be located or within a radius of 1,000 feet of any pump or other fuel filling devices or device on any other lot, except that for a motor vehicle fueling station in a shopping center in the Gateway Business B4 district, the radius will be 500 feet, provided there will be vehicle battery charging stations on the shopping center lot of not less than 50% of the number of gasoline pumps. And so the existing separation distance of 1,000 feet is to be retained on lots other than those in the shopping center in the B4 district, is to be retained in the regulations.
In the B4 district,
And is there any conflict with what you mentioned on the prior application this evening, in terms of a communication to Matt Willis regarding issues of 1,000-foot separation. Or even 500-foot feet of separation.
I'm not sure what the question.
There was some, you related to us, that there was some communication between you and our consulting attorney, Matt Willis, regarding legal issues of separation distance requirements. And that was for the first application. This application would maintain 1,000 feet of separation except for lots in the B4 district in the shopping center, where the separation distance would then be 500 feet. Are there any communications that we need, this commission should know of, that occurred between you and did you send anything to our consulting attorney, Matt Willis, regarding any legal issues of separation distance requirements on this application?
No, there is none. I have not submitted anything
So
to him regarding.
That was only for the first application, not for
I
this.
have not submitted anything
Okay.
regarding this application.
All right. All right, hey, Mr. Levy online, if you raise your hand anew, you have an opportunity.
Yes.
Okay.
This application, which applies only to one shopping center, 500 feet, obviously, and it does not apply to anywhere else in town. It's just obviously writing zoning regulations for the privileged few, those who hire their attorney, who write the application, who write a proposal to change the zoning regulations. It's just way out of line. I would urge that this one be rejected also. And at the very least, as a member of the public, I don't have all the documents in front of me that are distributed tonight. So this, if not rejected, should at least be postponed to continued to the same time as the other part of this proposal is considered.
We so request that continuance, Mr. Chairman.
With that,
We so request that this application likewise be continued to your first meeting in April, and the documents which I have presented here will be online so that they can be reviewed by the public. Mr. Levy and others.
well, yes, it puts us in a hard position because it's difficult to justify being inconsistent from the prior public hearing and this public hearing, but to submit new materials on the night of the opening of the public hearing and have that be justification for continuing the public hearing wreaks havoc with our agendas in the future. And it seems to me that here's the opening of the public hearing was announced twice in legal ads in the 15 days prior to this evening. And application materials that are submitted at the night of the opening of the public hearing might have appeared sooner, and the lack of their presence online is to me an odd reason for having to or being required to continue a public hearing. But that said, well, we'll consider that. Anyone in the room wishing to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application regarding a text change of separation differences in a regulation section 53.1 part B, where it would remain as is 1,000 feet of any pump or other fuel filling devices or device on any other lot except for a motor vehicle fueling station in a shopping center in the Gateway Business B4 district. The radius will be 500 feet, provided there will be vehicle battery charging stations on the shopping center lot of not less than 50% of the number of gasoline pumps. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or in opposition to? None appearing. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter. Is there a second to the motion? None appearing. Anyone else care to make a motion?
I make a motion, we continue this public hearing to Monday, April 4th, 7 o'clock. April 3rd?
April 3rd.
April 3rd, 7 o'clock at Town Hall, first floor conference room, 302 Main Street, Old Saybrook, Connecticut.
Is there a second to Mark Delmonico's motion to continue the public hearing? Anne Marie Thorson seconds the motion. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion to continue the public hearing to April
Third.
third, 2023, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 in favor, me opposed. Next on the agenda is drive-through petition to amend the Old Saybrook zoning regulations to 12.3 to modify and extend the timeline for the moratorium for drive-through windows as an accessory use for financial institutions, pharmacies, indoor restaurants, or other food and beverage establishments, section 53, to December 31st, 2023. The petitioner is us, the Old Saybrook Zoning Commission. This opens the public hearing. There was a timeline here that has a closed date, but since the commission is the initiator of this application for a text change, legally, there is no must complete the public hearing date. So that's on the agenda here, but it's my understanding unless the law has changed, that the zoning commission is not obligated to finish public hearing regarding a text change on the same timeline as other applicants might be. So please check on that if you would. Good. All right. So this boils down to, we have in an open public hearing, a referral report from the planning commission regarding this application, wherein they say that they recommend denial because it is not consistent with the plan of conservation and development. And that's the extent of the report. I have a question about that, but that's their report. My question might be, we have a moratorium that continues to be in place today, and I don't recall that it was denied, but I guess that doesn't matter with regard to their report for this application. So the purpose of the extension of the moratorium to December 31st of this year was to enable us to continue our workshops to modify the regulations regarding drive-throughs for financial institutions, pharmacies, and indoor restaurants or other food and beverage establishments, so that we can get it right the first time rather than have to do it again. And in that regard, we have collected information in our workshops from drive-through restaurants. We had Starbucks and Dunkin' and who else?
Guilford Savings.
Guilford Savings Bank.
Right. So we are incorporating that input. And I have, but I hope the other commissioners have also proceeded to do the homework regarding those workshops included in the present moratorium, and for which we have before us an application to extend the moratorium to include reviews of the sidewalk plan, which is part of the plan of conservation and development, and our existing regulations, especially regarding the pedestrian node. And the pedestrian node is a large swath of town on both sides of Route 1, and it includes other areas as well. But for most of the areas in which financial institutions and pharmacies and indoor restaurants and other food and beverage establishments might be allowed, the pedestrian node influences almost all, if not all, of those properties. And so we have more review work that I would like to continue. And in that light, before we send a proposed text change regulation out for referrals to, for instance, the Planning Commission and DEEP, that we have adequate time to get it prepared, possibly revised. Who knows, maybe we might need to continue a public hearing once we have an application before us for a text change. And to get that done, it would be it would be better for the commission in terms of timeline to extend the moratorium to December 31st. Any other discussion among the commission members
I think
regarding extending our timeline of the moratorium?
I think the purpose of the planning commission was delaying it any further would maybe negatively impact people putting up a potential items before us because they couldn't. It might negatively the town economically. I think that was the purpose of them
The letter
denying
from-
it, having listened to the meeting of the planning commission.
What's the date on their letter of report, their referral
Today,
today? So their meeting was before that? Did they specify at their meeting that they issued this report?
no, I don't have it.
Okay, so it would require local knowledge to come up with a date for the planning commission's last meeting, at which they may have generated this report.
It was March 3rd, I believe. It was this month. It was this week. This within the past 6 days.
They met. Yes, Mr. Royston.
Thank you. The planning commission meeting was March 1st.
Okay.
March 1st.
And, before you finish, because it is a public hearing, we would like to, speak with respect to the
Right,
extension.
just trying to get the timeline straight. So that, with regard to a communication that the zoning commission received somewhat recently from Mr. Casella for Oasis. On what was the date of his withdrawal of that application?
I don't have that because
Right.
that had nothing to do with tonight.
Somebody have that online or?
It was last week or so, maybe.
Right, well, my question stems from whether or not the planning commission could have been aware of the withdrawal of that application as of their March 1st meeting. If they were aware of the withdrawal of that application, it's a little bit different compared to if they were unaware of a pending application. With emails
I'm trying to find it.
At March 1st,
when,
March 1st. Was the date of the withdrawal.
all right, so.
It was the same day.
All right, the same day, all right. So one can assume that the planning commission was aware that an application for a drive-through window was withdrawn on the same day as their meeting. I don't have proof that they were aware of that, but it's possible that they were. It doesn't matter
The
here or there.
letter was submitted during business hours.
It was?
Yes.
Okay, so it's possible that the planning commission was aware or were made aware that it was withdrawn. But that doesn't matter, their report to the referral for our text change to extend the moratorium recommends a denial. And that's the extent of their report. All right, anyone wishing to speak in favor of or in opposition to, Mr. Royston, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm going to submit again for your record, a letter from, Big Y dated February 28th. It's the same letter that you received in, previous, two previous applications. But it does, address the moratorium, in the, last three paragraphs of the letter. So that's for the record. And it is the same letter that you have. And he makes reference to the fact that not only do they have had an application for drive-through window which they withdrew, but Ron Lyman, who was here, also has a preliminary plan which has been reviewed or some of it, for the development of the eastern portion of his property. And he does have plan for three food drive-through, one financial drive-through in that plan. I'll let him speak to what happens if you hold on through December before this regulation comes into effect. I'll let him see about that part of it. The part that I would state is that you heard from your Gifford Savings Bank and for Dunkin' Donuts and for Starbucks, I think. And I zoomed in and listened to that meeting. And the biggest issues were the stacking lanes, the ability to bypass lanes.
So we don't have that application as part of this discussion. This is whether or not to extend the moratorium. This text change tonight is only about the length of the moratorium.
I understand that. I'm saying the reason not to extend the moratorium is because I think the issues that were raised by them are addressable through regulations, and those regulations can be adopted within the period of time you still have. And part of that is I have provided to the zoning enforcement officer some materials which if you wish to present it to you would be fine, but I'm a staff person, which essentially separated out your regulation between financial and pharmacies and food. Because right now, your regulations have them combined into one regulation. I think it makes it very difficult, and the issues relating to them, I think, are quite different. So number one, I think this can be done. There's a template, simply changing the sequence, the definitions, separating out regulation standards for drive-through and pharmacy, standards for drive-through for restaurants. So I would hope that this material is available. It can be readily produced, considered, and now is not the time to advocate for any particular substantive regulation, but just the procedure. And I think that can be accomplished within the period of time of your moratorium. I'm going to ask, if I may, Ron Lyman to speak about what the effective moratorium has upon developers.
Yes, thank you for your time. It has certainly made things much more challenging. During the past several months, a year, as we all know, interest rates have gone up. It's materials have gone up. There's been a lot of increased expenses in my legal, civil engineering, legal. And my biggest concern is that I've got tenants in fact that insist on having an out clause because they're not sure they want to wait. And I spent, a lot of money in good faith. I want to do something nice with sidewalks, stone walls. I mean, I know we're not doing anything specific, but I hope that you folks, because I'm always willing to be have somebody hold my nose to the fire, if you will, on making something right and safe and aesthetically pleasing. And I want to do a first-rate job, as I know I've done everything the town has asked me to do. Plus, I didn't have to irrigate, do stone walls, pavers, a bunch of things. But regardless, specific to this application, I would hope that you understand this. I have a significant commitment of time and money to this town And I think it's just this national tenants that we want that are interested in this area, but are not willing to just commit as long as we want to take while we're tweaking regulations that I think we kind of all know the issues. We need to have to figure out how we want to put them in writing. At least, it's mentioned stacking, whatever we need to do to make it safe. If you have people feel comfortable, I hope in the meantime, though, we don't have economic windfall, losses because of it. And I would hope you can appreciate what I've done, time and resources and so on in every way to try to make enhance the tax list to make more conveniences and do it properly for the town at the same time. I've never tried to do anything half, so to speak, you know what I'm saying? Half, you know what I'm thinking, but I don't want to say in public, but in any case, so if it's at all possible, for you folks to try to get through this regulation, which I think it is. I know it's digging in and so on, but I would hope that you folks would consider seriously not extending the moratorium, because I'm concerned about what the effects, the negative effects. And thank you for your time.
Anyone else? Mr. Levy has left the room. All right, any commissioners have any questions, comments? This is the first time I've seen a document mention that in a letter from Matthew Dunmore dated February 28, 2023 on behalf of Big Y Foods Inc. The next to the last paragraph. I understand that the Max's Place development to the east will have 4 drive-through windows in addition to our 1. That's the first time I've seen in a document that there are at least an inclination to apply for those numbers of drive-through windows. And as Mr. Royson aptly described the complexity of regulating drive-through windows for financial institutions and pharmacies and indoor restaurants or other food and beverage establishments, that seems to me to justify a continuation of the moratorium in order that we get the regulations to make sense and to be done properly the first time, especially if there's to be applications for multiple drive-through windows in this part of town, as in the February 28th letter from Big Y. So despite the Planning Commission's timely report specifying that they recommend a denial, it seems to me that we take that report into consideration and we give it the consideration that it is due, but we're not obligated to follow that recommendation. And it's my opinion that it would be advisable to continue the moratorium until we get regulations drafted to public hearing after a 35-day referral period, again, to the Planning Commission, and have time to adopt them and advertise them before they would become effective. And we could certainly get that accomplished, I would hope, before December 31st. And then take care of housekeeping to make it effective at that time.
I think since we've also scheduled a specific extra meeting to deal with just this too, we'll be able to move it along and get it done
Yes.
faster also.
Well,
If
our
we lose
workshops
it,
have been
move it along.
scheduled at the
Really
end of regularly scheduled meetings where the agenda fills up and the clock runs until it becomes late. And as unpaid volunteers doing this, it has been more difficult to get a lot accomplished at that late hour. We have a special meeting coming up later this month regarding this. We'll see how that goes when we get there. But before us tonight is a decision as to whether or not to officially change the regulations that's required in order to extend the moratorium date to give us time to do our work. All right, any further input required for this application? None appearing, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing regarding the drive-through, the petition to amend the Old Saybrook zoning regulations to modify and extend the timeline for the moratorium for drive-through windows as an accessory use for financial institutions, pharmacies, indoor restaurants, or other food and beverage establishments, section 53, to December 31st, 2023. Is there a second
I'll second.
to the, Anne Marie Thorson seconds the motion to extend the moratorium date to December 31st, 2023. All in favor of the motion to close the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Aye. Do we wish to deliberate on this evening? Do we need
Yes.
any further input? No, then we can deliberate. With regard to our open public hearing and review of the referrals from the well, we do get one from DEEP. If it's not in the record already, let it be in the record now. It's coming from staff. They would count. Anyway, we have a recommendation from the Planning Commission to deny this. We give it its due consideration. We have a letter from Big Y Foods dated February 28th. Asking us not to extend the moratorium. And we appreciate that perspective that the commission discussed during the open public hearing. And we would like to get the regulations modified, the complicated regulations of drive-through windows for all the different types where they're possible to get them done properly the first time. And in order to get referrals out, reports back, and advertised an effective date that an extension to December 31st is in our best interest. Anything else to contribute?
I mean, I agree with you, Bob. We should do this to protect our own whatever, but it's also in the town's best interest that we do it as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Sandy, and John concur?
Same way.
Anne Marie, any comments? Yes? Or
No other
too late.
comments.
Too late. All right, then I will make a motion to approve the petition to amend the old Saybrook zoning regulations to section 12.3 to modify and extend the timeline for the moratorium for drive-through windows as an accessory use for financial institutions, pharmacies, and indoor restaurants or other food and beverage establishments to December 31st, 2023, with an effective date of, what are we, March 6th? March 27th, right? Is that our special meeting?
Yes.
Yes. So the effective date, if this is approved, effective date of March 27th, 2023. Is there a second to the motion? Mark DeMonico seconds the motion to approve the text amendment. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve the text amendment to extend the moratorium on drive-through windows to December 31st, 2023, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Motion carries unanimously. No opposed, no abstentions. Thank you. Next on the agenda is committee representative and staff reports. Nothing. Thank you. Next on the agenda is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second Justin Terravelli's motion to adjourn. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously 5-0-0. Thank you and good night.